The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Kev, I don't know whether you're as nervous as me, and I know there'll be people that say, but that's not even our team. But you've got to admit, Kev, are you a little bit nervous about tomorrow? Paris Saint-Germain. I appreciate if you're listening to this a week out of time or something, you'll think, oh, well, Arsenal already belted them 4-0. But is there a little bit of nerves in you, Kev? Little bit of nerves?
We beat them 2-0 in the league phase.
I know, it was a very different team though, Kev. A very different setup when we did that.
So was the Arsenal team, very different then. We had a striker for a start.
Yeah. It's true. I've got my Crocs ready. I've got my studded Crocs ready to go. I'll be on the side. I think it works because I saw somebody on Britain's Got Talent last weekend who was, I don't know, sat 10, 20 feet behind Simon, just suddenly decided to stick his hand up during the audition and say, Simon, can I have a go? And then he belted out my way brilliantly, and he's through, I think he got the golden buzzer, so he's through to the whatever it is, the quarters or semis or whatever it takes him. So maybe, Kev, you and I should rock up to the Emirates. We'll have our studded Crocs ready, and we can run on, Kev. Never mind false nine. We'll be the full thing. So there's no nerves in you at all. I'm amazed, Kev. Usually you're a bag of nerves at this time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want them to win, of course, but I'm very excited for next season though, because I think there's 3 players I'm fairly confident we'll get.
Yeah. Mullins, James.
And Albie.
Who's the third one then?
The FujiCast.
I'm quite excited about that. It's always great to see when you're abroad, if you can watch your team, whatever flavour of sport you support, if you can watch your team in a pub on holiday and they win, that's about as good as it gets, isn't it, Kev?
Yeah.
We went to the Irish bar to watch the first match between Arsenal and Real when Arsenal won 3-0, and it started off with quite a lot of it was in Portugal. There were quite a lot of Real fans, and they made their voices very much heard, but not for long.
Were you the only Arsenal fans in the bar?
We weren't the only ones, but we definitely weren't in a majority when it started. But there we go. It was good fun. Anyway, good luck to whatever team you support. And I'm sure we have some French listeners, Kev, who might be saying, hang about, I want Paris Saint-Germain to win. Thank you very much. So good luck to all. Right, welcome along. Here's the FujiCast. You and your questions. Not many questions, Kev. We'll come to that in a moment. That you're sending into the show either to click at fujicast.co.uk or via the Facebook page. How do you do that, Kev? How do you do that?
Go to Facebook, search for FujiCast, and there is a big post at the top that says questions for the show thread. Pop your questions in there and we will get to them, maybe.
No, we will, definitely. And then you've got a bookity book this time, haven't you? What have you got? A Prestel book, I think.
We have a Prestel book, and it is called, it's titled Queer Happened Here, 100 Years of New York City's Landmark LGBTQ plus Places.
Right, okay.
By Marc Zinaman. So we'll get to that in a moment. It's actually published today, I believe, 28th of April. So
that's the day of... Oh, no, that is when the show goes out. Kev, it's so difficult sometimes. You're better at this than me. We've both got the book, so even though we're in different parts of the world, not a million miles apart, having said that, we can both look at it as you're doing the review. I went to the House of Photography, and they a couple of weeks ago, and in fact last week, because I was doing a workshop as well in London, and they have this great thing where you can print pictures and show your pictures on the wall. It's all becoming part of the photographic community in the upstairs, where you have the upstairs gallery up there.
Yeah.
And it's growing now. I actually went to they've got a little printer in the corner, and you can print out. I printed out free a load of prints, which I quite liked.
Did you see our Andreas?
I did not. No. I don't think, does he? I don't know whether he works out of there too often these days.
I don't know. Yeah, I think he's there sometimes, but don't know.
No, I didn't see him, sadly. Next time, maybe. Coffee and Andreas next time. Thank you to Pick Time for your sponsorship and support of this show. Pick-time.com is it's a website platform that both myself and Kev have used for years and years and years. In fact, so many years, I think this stretches back prior to COVID, Kev, which is not...
It was definitely COVID when I made the change.
Oh, was it during that period that you changed over?
It might have been just before, but it was that period, I remember. And I made it because you'd made it. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking a good 5 or 6, maybe 7 years now, yeah.
The galleries that we use are the places where we show our work from the jobs that we've done, whether they be weddings or portrait shoots or commercial shoots, art stuff, because you can put art galleries online, can't you, Kev? And,
I got an interesting story about Pick Time that happened last week, in fact. Because I used to have, before I moved, I had all my old galleries on another platform, and Pick Time offer a service. I think it's about $1 a gallery where they will do the heavy lifting and move them all from your old. You kind of give them your login details, and then they move all of the old galleries across. So I did all of that for however many 600 galleries or whatever it was, and they did all of that. It was great. And then last week I had an email from a client from about 8 years ago and said, I'm really sorry, we never really got around to buying our prints, because in those days I used to give 10 prints away or whatever for free.
8 years they've waited for this, Kev.
Yeah, it was like 10 free prints. Can we, I've clicked on the link that you sent us back then, and it doesn't work anymore, obviously. On the old system. So I went into Pick Time, I found their gallery, I set up a discount for them that kind of covered the value of the 10 prints, sent it off and said, I've changed gallery, changed systems now, this is much better. Here's a little discount code that will give you the equivalent of your 10 prints. You can use it on anything else as well, of course, if you so wish. And then they did. They went and bought an album and a couple of frames. So I then ended up with a few pounds profit.
Stop press, more than a few pounds profit.
Yeah, it was, yeah. It was a couple of £100.
Yeah, I was going to say, they bought an album, they bought prints.
Yeah, exactly. And they had their £100 discount that I'd set up for the print, the cost of the prints. But yeah, they were very happy, and I was very happy, and Pick Time very happy, and you're very happy, and
everybody's happy.
Bukayo Saka's happy.
Happy day. Cue the song.
Saint-Germain fans.
Well, we don't know yet, Kev. Let's not tempt fate. Well, if you want to join in with all this happiness, and you've got pictures to share and you want to sell stuff, then go to pick-time.com. And if you put in FujiCast on the checkout, what does it do for you, Kev, in your happy life?
Gives you a month free.
Perfect.
Free.
Free. Right. Yeah. Questions. Well, the questions haven't been very... it might be because it's been Easter holidays. I don't know, Kev. But people do stuff on Easter. They go camping and whatever, don't they? Camping? Well, have I just picked up on... Have you ever been camping?
I did go camping once with an old girlfriend.
Did you?
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that the length of the story?
Yeah, I don't remember where we went. Somewhere, I think we went to Devon or something. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't like it.
What, camping or the trip?
Actually, that's not true. I've been camping a few times. Sorry, I used to go cycling with my friends, and we went cycling around all of Belgium, did the circle.
Wow, and with camping as well. Imagine these days with a camera, Kev, the photo story you could tell.
I know.
You'd get back on that bike now, I think, Kev.
I think they'd all be blurry.
Well, I can't remember where we were with that. Oh, yes. So
Easter holidays.
Easter's a busy time. Maybe that's the reason for the mailbag not being quite as blessed with your emails as usual, and the Facebook not being quite as blessed with questions. But we'll do our best, Kev. But this is a plea to say, please send in a few more. Otherwise, it'll be 8 weeks to the next edition while we're waiting. So, Kev, do you want to launch off with Facebook?
I will. It's quite a big one to start with. This is from Sandro Correria. It's a question about lenses. Good morning, Neale and James. Once again, congrats on the podcast.
Hang on a minute. That doesn't usually happen.
No, Neale spelled Neil.
Yeah,
and James.
And James. Fine.
So you've got to answer this. I'm just reading it out. You've got to answer it.
No. I'm sure James, a.k.a. Kev.
I'm a regular listener and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean. Yeah. So the question that's been bugging me is this. I'm a street photographer and I shoot with my X Pro 3 paired with a fantastic trio of primes, 18mm f2, 23mm 1.4R and 56mm 1.2. Right. I made the mistake of swapping the 18mm for the new 18mm 1.4, and obviously the quality and sharpness are insane.
Yes.
So much so that according to the X app, it was my most used lens in 2024. Not sure why that makes it a mistake, but there you go. Thanks to the X app, and after a quick look through the images on my blogs, I also realized I rarely use the 56mm, fewer than 10 keepers in a year. Little doubt started creeping into my mind. Some light gas symptoms that got worse after watching a few YouTube reviews of the XF33.
Sorry to hear it. Imodium usually helps in those
What if I trade in the 23mm f1.4 and 56mm f1.2 on MPB for the XF33mm 1.4?
Yeah.
That's sweet linear motor and such beautiful glass. I really like the 23mm focal length, but I also have it on my Fujifilm X100S. And maybe jump into 33mm could be a good compromise to let go of the 56mm. What do you think? I shoot 90% street photography and 10% my wife.
Does he mean my life or my wife?
My wife, kids and dogs.
Oh, right. Okay.
P.S. By the way, any thoughts on the new GFX 100 RF? How does it hold up for street photography? Jonas Rask and Pale Schultz came to Madeira, my homeland, and didn't bother to say hi. Just kidding. That's Jonas and Pale all over, that is. Right. So first of all, I think he said he made the mistake of swapping the 18mm for the new 18mm, and I don't think he meant mistake. I think because he then went on to say that it's the most used picture.
No, that's not a mistake.
Ignore that bit.
Yeah.
So he has 18, 23, 56, doesn't want to keep the 56. Shall he swap the 23 and the 56 for the 33? Bearing in mind he has 23mm focal length on his X100S. So my answer, Sandro, would be, well, first of all, you've got to look at how often you use the X100S. Go back to your X app and see how many pictures, keepers that you have from that X100S at that focal range. If it's lots and lots and lots, then that implies to me that you still want that 23mm focal length. If it's not, if it's mostly the 18mm and the actual 23mm, and the 18mm that you said you're taking most of your pictures with, then think about getting rid of the 56 and the 23 and get the 33. I mean, you do then still have your 23 on your X100S, which makes sense. I'd do it. Just get rid of it. Get rid of the 56. Get rid of the 23.
Does it not depend upon what style of street photography you are doing or might do in the future? Because he loves his street. And I regretted not having a 56mm with me recently when I was doing some stuff abroad, because I thought, I just need my portrait lens. And even though I wouldn't have used the 56 a lot, I most definitely would have used it, and it would have been perfect. And that's my problem with getting rid of something as wonderful as that excellent 56.
I'm assuming because he's saying street photography rather than street portraiture, that it's
still street photography. It's still street. You're still making photographs.
But that's an assumption.
Yeah. We're still making photos on the street. They just happen to be portraits.
Yep, but he didn't say that.
No, I know. But I'm just wondering, people change and they develop their style and their interests, whether you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater if you get rid of that 56.
Yeah, but as he said, he didn't take, hardly any pictures are on the 56.
He does take pictures of his wife.
Fewer than 10 keepers in a whole year.
What, of his wife?
56. Well, I don't know. Okay, let's do the maths. Fewer than 10 keepers in a whole year on his 56mm. He does 90% street photography and 10% of his wife and kids. Yeah. So that means 9 of those keepers were shot on the streets and only 1 are of his wife, kids and dogs.
So get rid of the 56.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Yeah. It's a lovely lens, though.
It is a lovely lens.
It is. Yeah. It is. Right, has that solved his problem?
Yeah.
Oh, no, also the GFX.
Definitely keep the wife, kids and dogs, though.
Yeah, definitely. What about the GFX question that he had? Because he was mentioning that in...
Yeah, any thoughts on the GFX 100 RF? Yeah, of course. And if you have listened to the most recent episodes of the podcast, I've got very, very strong opinions of GFX 100 RF. And how does it hold up for street photography? Perfect. I think if you're into that focal range and you can afford it, it's going to be the best thing you can get your hands on right now. But, you have to take into account the cost and, fixed lens, all of that. But then you're used to that with the X100S, Sandro. So, if you've got the money and you want a insanely incredible camera and you're happy with that fixed focal length, then fill your boots.
I can't remember this is embarrassing, I should have noted it down, but in the House of Photography, they've got the screen right at the back now where they show videos, and they were showing a GFX film, and the guy who was featured in it is, I assume he's Cars and Motorsport, and he was showing how he used the camera, and the interesting bit was that I suppose it's all to do with this conversation of, it doesn't have IBIS. And he was showing pictures that he made on the move, photographing a car behind the car he was in. And he felt no need for IBIS. Look, handhold this thing. It's a joy.
Yeah.
And I think you found that as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we've covered that enough. I think, people don't really understand the mechanism of IBIS and that kind of focal length and that size sensor. If you're going to spend that kind of money on something, do your research properly and test it and see if it's good for you. But yeah, ultimately, IBIS is not a necessity on that kind of technology. But if you have a reason for it, such as you do lots of, handheld long exposures, or maybe you're a little bit, you've got a little bit of jittery hands, tremors or whatever, then that's a different thing.
That makes a difference.
But do your research. But ultimately, I personally don't think it needs it for sure.
Wallace Shackleton, who always to me sounds like he should be a world explorer with a long, long white beard, Kev. Yeah, maybe he does. This is really just a follow-up to the GFX 100. It's not really a question. In fact, most of the things I've got in my inbox here aren't really questions. What insightful comments that Kev made about the GFX 100 and the X Pro 4. Why can't he say these things on his reviews? It makes a whole lot of sense. I think he doesn't mean, why can't you? Because you are saying these things on his reviews. I think he's in that kind of like, why do people have such problems with you saying such things or being so honest on your reviews? This isn't just about Kev, actually. This is about all people that do reviews. They're bound to get comments. The brigade that sit at home rubbing their knees and saying, I wonder what I can say here that really stirs the pot. It's a good job people are honest in their camera reviews. I think most people are, aren't they, Kev?
I wasn't sure that I saw the email and I wasn't sure whether Wallace meant that or whether he meant the additional stuff I talked about on the podcast that perhaps I didn't talk about on the review and why I hadn't covered that on the review.
Well, if that was the reason,
X Pro 4 and stuff.
Okay, if that was the reason, why didn't you then, Kev, say on your review?
Well, ultimately, and let's assume it was that. Let's assume, if we go back to the previous podcast and we were talking about the X Pro 4 and why they did the GFX RF 100 instead of X Pro 4. And, in summary, I basically said because the timing's not right and, it's end of sensor, X Pro needs to be beginning of sensor. And I never said that in my review, my online review of the GFX 100 RF. And the simple answer to that is because I can't put everything in the reviews. Obviously, it just never even come to my mind. I never expected a lot of the comments on my GFX 100 RF review to be like, why isn't there an X Pro 4? As much as I'd love to see an X Pro 4. So I don't know whether the question from Wallace is that angle or the other angle. But anyway, ultimately, you can only do so much, can't you, in a review? You can only say so many things. And then when good people like Wallace, good people like Sandro send us questions and for the podcast, then we can expand on those things. Yeah. I can't do everything, I'm afraid.
Yes, you can,
As much as my kids think I can.
Do they? Do your kids think you can do everything?
Yeah, they can click their fingers and Dad'll do it. And or Mum.
Is that the way? Is that the way where we've got tail? If I click my fingers, can you come and fix the? Thomas is having terrible trouble with Flight Simulator with a particular aircraft he bought. Any chance you could pop across, fix it? Nobody. I haven't found anybody else that can do it, and I certainly can't. Can you come? When can you come across?
Possibly, that's one of the things I could probably do in terms of fixing. Bear in mind, I used to be on the support team at Microsoft for Flight Simulator, but it was very different those days.
Well, can I send the box to you, or can you be here
send
by
me the box?
Or can you be here by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning?
Send me the box and a screwdriver, and I'll send it back fixed.
All right, okay, job done. Thomas, it's all right. Flight Simulator's fixed. Send it back, and I'll pretend I did it.
Yep.
Go on then. Question from Facebook.
Ben Niznik says, Kev and Neale, when looking at your portfolio, which is your most used focal length? Kind of similar to the previous question, really. Yeah. I'm looking at mine and 100% are on the 18 mil. Should I be trying to change this up or lean into it and change, maybe using 1833 at weddings? Well, it's a very similar question, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, here's a link to my website for reference. I'm early into my wedding photography journey, so please be kind. Okay, so
I haven't got the link. Can you send me the link?
I'm gonna read it out. Okay. Right. capsize.media, capsiz.media.
Oh, as in size, capsize.
Yeah.
No D on it.
size.media.
Yeah.
/ my portfolio.
Ben Nisnik, yeah?
Yeah. So the question is, 100% of his work is on the 18mm. Should I change this up or lean into it? And the answer, just by looking at your pictures, Ben, is I would stick with the 18mm because they're fine. They're brilliant. You're getting close. You're standing back. You're storytelling. You've got good use of light. I mean, if you're getting clients and you're only using 18mm lens and you're happy to use just that, stick with it. I think it's great just shooting with the 18mm. Yeah. I mean, I don't have my catalogue here now, but I can tell you when I switched from 23 to 18, which I suppose was about four years ago, whenever the new 18 came out, I'd say at least 90% of my pictures on a day, wedding day, were on the 18mm, and the rest, kind of those pokey out portrait type shoot through things on the 56.
Pokey out portrait shoot through things.
When
you look at the portfolio, there's nothing here within his portfolio that suggests that he would shoot with the 56 at all. Really, this is one camera, one lens, one life by the looks of it.
Yeah, great. Yeah. I like it.
I like his description. Hey, I'm Ben. I'm the human behind Capsize Media.
Capsize Media is such a good name. Isn't it?
Started during a time when our world was thrown upside down. Oh, I suppose that makes sense with the name, doesn't it? During COVID, don't like saying that word still, lockdowns, with a vision of being able to provide people with honest and authentic memories through my documentary-style photographs. I firmly believe everyone has a story to tell. Here. Nice. I like the...
I will say, Ben, you need pictures on your homepage, though.
Oh, is he not got it on the homepage?
I can't see any pictures on the homepage.
No. It just goes to this Hi, I'm Ben thing, doesn't it? Sorry. Yes, you're right. Yeah, I went straight to the portfolio.
Get some pictures on your homepage, Ben, and you'll be smashing it. Smashing it with the rich kids.
Smashing it with the rich kids?
Yeah.
So you got the language, Kev. You can come back now. You can come back. All this sort of I've retired nonsense. Now you're speaking like a youth. You can come back.
Youth.
Shall we do the bookity book before we do another question?
Yeah.
Let's do that. 100 years of NYC's landmark LGBTQ plus places. Queer happened here. Marc Zinaman, with a foreword by Peppermint.
Yep. So we've both been sent this book, and I'll just read a little bit off the opening letter that come with it. The Stonewall Inn, Studio 54. The Continental Baths, Lucky Cheng's, the Cock. The names alone evoke intoxicating images of New York's legendary LGBTQ plus culture, activism, and community long after many of those legendary spaces have closed. From Central Park to the Christopher Street Piers, Webster Hall to Westgate, queer history can be found throughout the city, yet it's gone largely unmarked, obscured, or forgotten entirely. So Marc Zinaman is a New York City-based writer and historian who's put this book together, and Peppermint is a New York City-based actor, musician, and public speaker who made history in 2018 as the first transgender woman to originate a principal role in a Broadway musical. Okay, so nice big book, and this is more of a history book rather than necessarily a photography book. There are lots and lots and lots of photos in there, what I found interesting actually is kind of the stories behind, not necessarily the images themselves, but the locations, the places. A lot of this stuff is from the 70s and 80s, which is kind of before my time of memory, and certainly before I ever went to places like New York or anything like that. But as a book, it's it's really well designed. It's got that lovely texture to the pages. I like the fact that it uses multicolored pages for different elements, different sections. The photos themselves, often because they seem to have been taken on point and shoot cameras by the people in the places, are not necessarily that big, and there's certainly not necessarily photos that you're going to study because of their photographic quality. But that doesn't matter, does it? Because, as we always say, the most important thing is the story and the history. And I love the pullout of some documents and posters on walls and things like that. And it's great that people, these places that don't some of them might exist still, but perhaps don't. People had the foresight, even in those days, in the 70s and 80s, to just photograph, adverts, writings on walls, a little bit of, graffiti or whatever that somebody had written on a poster. And, they kept that. And, rather these days, we kind of snap things on our phones, don't we? Every kind of Christmas, we go through our phone and delete everything we don't think is important. But, and often those things, other things that get deleted, but they they become important. It's the legacy of history, isn't it?
I think there's definitely an air of defiance about what is some great photojournalism in here. It might be on point and shoot cameras, but there's some cracking photojournalistic pictures in here. I was looking at the first Pride March, thinking, maybe to my kids it does, but to me it doesn't really seem that long ago. And I think that's quite interesting about it. There's a definite feeling of a sort of a fingerprint on a city, isn't there? This is that kind of book when it comes to the photojournalistic pictures. And you're right, some of these places will no longer exist. I bet some of them do, though, Kev.
Oh, I'm sure some of them do, yeah.
A lot of party pictures in there, Kev.
And I'm just reading on page 46 about Women's House of Detention.
Right.
In 1929, an eye-catching Art Deco building was constructed at 10 Greenwich Avenue and opened as the Women's House of Detention, or the House of D for short. For the next 40 years, this imposing prison in the heart of Greenwich Village incarcerated many queer women and trans masculine people. And that's awful, isn't it? And then there's some pictures of people in there and kind of just staring out windows and looking through bars. So there's a lot of stuff that I just certainly wouldn't have known in terms of the history of it.
Well, there's a quote that's quite interesting. There's something powerful about seeing protest sites and party spaces side by side. Reminds you just how closely joy and resistance have always danced together. I wish I could write like that when I grow up.
Yeah. Anyway, if you're into the history of the scene in New York City, then this is a great book. It's well put together book. It's a nicely cut book as well, nice and big. Marc Zinaman, you can get it from Prestel, and I think you will probably be able to get it as of today in all normal book selling places. £40.
£40. $50.
Back.
Is it $50? £40?
$50, 68 Canadian dollars, 40 GBP.
Right. Back to questions. Do you know, a lot of these are comments, Kev, more than questions that I've got here. Alex Coney. A question about posing. I was listening to Gary Williams talk about how the best way to improve portraits, outdoor, documentary, etc., is to stop people smiling. I often take a camera out when I'm out with family and friends. But how do you stop the smiling? How do you do a day in the life successfully, Kev? You do a lot of day in the life stuff, don't you? You used to do. I'm not sure you do so much anymore, do you?
No, I do. I still do some. Yeah, in fact, I do more of that now than I ever have done.
Oh,
it's not really a thing, because I think people who kind of commission you or me or anybody else to do day in the life stuff, they know what they're looking for. They know they want authentic stuff. The first 20 minutes or so, generally, I just chat to them. Get used to the kids, let the kids get used to me if they're there. It's often the guys, the dads, that are a little bit kind of like, oh, do I need to breathe in? And blah blah blah. And after 20 minutes, I'm always kind of like, look, listen, the whole point of this is that you just get on with your day. Ignore me as best as you can, but I will interact with you. We'll have coffee, we'll do all of that kind of stuff. And if you're laughing naturally because something has made you laugh, then that's great. I don't want them looking miserable. No. But from a portraiture point of view, I just don't do the portrait, so obviously I can't really kind of comment on that. But however, I've read this a lot, many times about kind of portraiture, and if you look at the people who do street photography portraiture really well, not necessarily the ones who do it really well, but the ones that I like the best are the ones when people are not necessarily smiling. But they are. It's much more environmental. This is a beautiful lady or a beautiful man or whatever stood outside a coffee shop, and we're interested in them as a subject, what they're wearing, the environment around them, the shop, the light, the scene. It's not necessarily like a picture that we're not creating a picture just for them to put on social media as their profile page. It's a storytelling thing. I don't know, like portraiture, pass, but real life stuff, just let the day flow, let it go flow, and it'll be natural and good.
I've always found with the day in the lives that I've done, there are some moments where because you're with them for a long, long time. At some stage, you're going to have a portrait moment. But if you can make that portrait moment be cohesive, a cohesive fit with the photographs that you have made during the day that are completely candid, that's quite a clever trick. At some stage, I found that I will at some stage do some portraits. It's not family, everybody come over here, smile, look at me, all cuddle a little bit close. Not those kind of portraits. Moments where you can gently guide something happening in front of your camera. Thank you, Alex. I really am. I tell you what, Kev, this email box, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and most of these are things are observations. They're not really questions. So go on, Kev. Okay. Facebook.
Dennis Lee, Captain Lee. Remember Captain Lee?
Yeah.
Question about the GFX 100 RF. Oh, hey! This new camera looks like a really interesting tool. 28mm is a bit wide for my taste these days, as I find that I prefer a more normal focal length, as I'm not working in close quarters with people so much. I've always been a real tight ass on cropping and learned my craft in film days when shooting full frame was the holy grail. This camera, however, is the first one that kind of throws a curve at that staunch attitude, simply because it's got the megapixels to really pull it off. And I've become a believer in pretty high-res images. So, my question, Kev,
yes.
If I shoot RAW only, as I prefer to do, and use the crop function in the X100 GFX 100 RF thing, will the cropped RAW version show up in Lightroom? The answer is yes. It will be pre-cropped to the way you see it in the camera. You can uncrop it and get the full res image.
Right.
However, my understanding is that does not work in Capture One, but it does in Lightroom. Right, question. It says question 3, although the first one didn't have a question number, and there isn't a question 2. So, oh no, hold on, sorry. Leica does this with the Q3.
Right, okay.
I was just reading Q3. So it operates the same way. So if you shoot in the cropped modes, it will come in pre-cropped as it does on the Leica. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, so I've answered that. I have found over the years that cleaning stuff up in post often devolves the image into something perhaps cleaner, but in the end, with a little less of the original life or intuitive feel that captured the original frame. This isn't always the case, but more often than not, the original frame has more vibrance to it emotionally than any post version ever will, even if it's not as clean. Hence, my curiosity if I'll be able to maintain that original version in Lightroom, or even if it's only initially. So yeah, the answer is yes. If you shoot at, 16:9, for example, using the crop, it will come into Lightroom at 16:9, but you can then just uncrop it if you want to the whole thing. So it's really cool like that. And he says, P.S. Kev, are you getting one? Wondering how much you actually liked it, being a pretty big X100 fan. And he also says, I also wonder if they will off the complementing adapter lenses for this camera as they have for the X100. Okay, so first of all, the adapter lens thing comes with the GFX 100 RF. The weather sealing ring that comes with it. It doesn't come with the X100 VI. You've got to buy that separately, but it does come with the GFX, as you would hope, being the price of it. Kev, are you getting one? And the answer is currently no. And the reason for that is I just can't justify the budget for it. And I've got my GFX system. I've got a GFX 100 system that I pretty much only use in the studio, and I interchange the lenses. And I just, I use my X100 VI. So right now, no. If I win the lottery, maybe I would. I mean, I would love to buy it, but I don't have the justification for it right now. Although saying that, I might at some point sell a whole load of stuff and throw it out.
Kev, hypothetically, Kev, I've won the lottery. What would you like me to buy you for your kit bag? I
would like you to buy me a GFX 100 RF, please.
Consider it done, Kev. Be with you by Wednesday, 3 o'clock.
Nice one. Good luck.
Postman. Oh yeah, might be. Postman Pete. Well, who will bring it for you then, Kev? Postman Matt, not Postman Pete.
No, Postman Matt's off Tuesday and Wednesday.
Is he?
I know that because he told me when we were in the pub. So yeah, you'll have to wait until Thursday for Matt to bring it to me.
This has been hanging around in the inbox, Kev, for so long. I think it's a bit like leaving cheese in the fridge. It might have grown legs and walked itself out. So I apologise deeply, Peter Foot, for this question not having been read for quite a while. He says, apologies for the upper lowercase mess above. I've done this by voice dictation. I'm not sure why it's done that. A bad workman and all that. Essentially, Kev, it's capital letters here and there, and it's a bit like reading something from
me.
I was going to say from you know who.
Don't be rude.
But perhaps we shouldn't go down that road. Good morning, guys. A question for when you meet this morning. I'm just back from a driving holiday to France. And I took with me a 56mm lens in conjunction with my XE4 to pick out subjects with a bit more detail. And then for the wider opportunities, the Ricoh GR3X. Have you ever used one of those, Kev? They're super little cameras.
No, I haven't actually, but I've seen lots of
nice.
people with them on my workshops. So yeah, they do love them.
So here's the quandary. I plugged in the SD card to my computer yesterday to look at the images. Every now and then, I would estimate every 25 to 40 in 40 25, 40 shots, or 25 in 40 shots, or every 25 to 40 shots. Anyway, it's happening a reasonable amount. There was a series of completely black images, typically 3 to 6 each as they appear. I'm pretty sure I didn't have the lens cap on at those times. You're using a mirrorless, so you'd know anyway, wouldn't you? But what could be happening, Kev? What is happening in his life?
I would imagine it could be the lens cap, but it's probably in the bag. It's probably
just taking some pictures randomly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's switched itself on in the bag, and it's just kind of pressed the button a few times, I would have thought. I mean, if it's happening exactly after every 30-second image, for example, then obviously there's a problem. But if it's pretty random, in fact, when I was doing my testing of the GFX 100 RF, I had a whole load of black images, and I realised that's exactly what I'd done.
Pictures in your bag.
I'd stuffed it in my bag.
Well, you know what you need, Kev? You need dividers. And then things, don't be telling Fujifilm that you're shoving stuff in that bag of doom, for heaven's sakes.
Actually, if I think back to it, I didn't even have a bag. It just stuffed it in my jacket pocket, and I probably, because I was so concerned about A, because it hadn't been announced, and B, because it was so expensive, I probably just kept my hand on it on the busy tube, and ended up taking pictures of the inside of my jacket pocket.
That's probably what was happening. My mate Giles, he puts chamois leather around all his cameras before they go into a bag. He is that fastidious about looking after his kit, Kev. Yeah. You and he are not alike in any way. I don't know if have we got time for. Have we got a QQ that you could dig out? And not a Q3. Not a Q3 this time.
Okay. Adam Ramjeen says, I'm working on my first zine on Notting Hill Carnival 2022, 2024. I'm a bit stumped on paper. Do you have any thoughts on GSM or finishes? Been listening since before COVID. Keep up the good work. His Instagram is @checkmybadself.
Check my bad self.
Yeah. Check my bad self.
Let me have a quick look at Check My Bad Self. I suppose it depends the printer obviously you're going with. I quite like uncoated papers, but not everybody's favourite is uncoated, because some people say it's a bit more of a watercolour-y kind of effect where colours are sort of sucked into the paper. But I really like uncoated stocks for work like that.
I've never done anything like that, so I don't really know.
What was it? Check My Bad Self.
Check my bad self.
While you're giving an answer, I'm just gonna. Oh, here we go. Right.
I don't have an answer to give.
Well, I'm looking at his work. So I'm looking at Adam's work, and there's definitely more of a pastel feel to these images, which I think would transfer beautifully to using an uncoated paper stock. I'm looking. Have you got his work there?
Yeah.
I think that might work really well. What do you think, Kev? Now you've seen his work.
I agree. I'm not sure if I don't think he might have sent us that zine, so I think it might have been. Really? Answering the question. Well, I love some of these pictures, by the way.
Yeah.
With all the hands.
I just see
one with the hands between the legs.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen the street performer that's, what do you call it when you get your shoulder and you put it out of joint? I saw dislocating. I saw somebody dislocate their shoulder to do a trick the other day at Covent Garden. I must say, I looked through my fingers, Kev, at that act. It was like, don't do that, but I couldn't take my eyes off it. Some of those Covent Garden acts are brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah.
But there we go. That's it. Get your questions in now. We really mean that now. If you want to get your questions into Facebook, Kev, how's it done? Be very clear with this, because we are in need of questions.
Facebook.com, search for the group The FujiCast. Join the group and you can join 3.9 thousand other members. And there is a thread at the top called Post all your questions for the show in here. Post them in there and that's it.
Perfect. Yeah, or you can send them in by email if you really are not a Facebook fan to click at fujicast.co.uk. Once again, click, sorry.
And what I was going to say, remember we do have a website, fujicast.co.uk, which has all of the episodes and various other bits and pieces as well. And there is a contact form on there that you can use as well if you prefer to do it that way.
Well, there's no excuses. Have a good couple of weeks, Kev. Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.